Smells like football, baby.
What's up, people? Welcome into the Fantasy Football Smackdown. It's Saturday, which means we're waiver wire sniping ahead of week 14. So as always, these are the players that you should be stashing right now ahead of the week 13 kickoff to get a jump on that waiver wire. The rest of your league won't know what hit them. We're getting down to it. Just 2 weeks left in the fantasy football regular season. It's crunch time, baby. So let's just dive right into this thing. Hopefully you guys have had a good week. Appreciate you guys checking out all of the shows here on the DWZ network. It's been another great week here. So hopefully you guys have been enjoying the content. Jumping right into this thing. Teams on bye in week 14. Unfortunately, the NFL did this to us, gave us 4 teams on bye the last week of the fantasy regular season. So next week, we have the Colts, Dolphins, Patriots, and Eagles all on bye. So pay attention to that. Make sure that you are taking a look ahead. If you are in a position in which one game can make the difference of you making the playoffs or you getting that first round bye, make sure you don't have a player that you've been depending on from one of these teams and leaving a big old hole in your roster. Here are some of the players that we can add right now for free to cover those spots. 5 streaming options at the quarterback position. Honestly, not in love with a lot of these, but there's a couple good ones I'd be okay with. Teddy Bridgewater leads it off because he gets the Detroit Lions. It's going to be in Denver. Teddy is 21% owned. You know what you're getting with him, man. If you plug and play, you're hoping for 18 to 20 points, and you could probably live with that. But he is probably your best option as far as streamers available in at least half of leagues right now over on Yahoo. Number 2 is Taylor Heineke, gets the Cowboys. That's going to be in Washington. Heineke's 35% owned. Similar to Bridgewater, kind of has that same low floor and a low ceiling as well. So I'd give the slight edge to Bridgewater based off the matchup. But even though that Cowboys defense has, definitely turned the ball over, they're still giving up some points. So number 3 on this list is Tyrod Taylor. They are going to be in Houston against the Seattle Seahawks. He's only 9% owned. Those are the top 3 guys. So you got the 3 T's. You got Teddy, Taylor, and Tyrod taking the top 3 streamer spots. As of right now, guys, you could stash. One thing I will note, if you don't want to stash your quarterback ahead of this week's kickoff, I'm totally fine with that because honestly, I think the top streaming option, assuming he's going to play, which it sounds like he's going to try to play through it, Taysom Hill, another T, is going to be the top streamer as long as he's going to play. He showed you last week he can completely suck eggs in regular football terms, but for fantasy, the dude's a stud because the man runs, and he is under 50% owned as of right now. He already put up a 24-point week against the Cowboys on Thursday night, but since he played, he's not eligible to be stashed or sniped in this exercise. So just a note on that. I will definitely preface those 3 ads. If you want to add the streaming quarterback, any of those, Bridgewater, Heineke, or Taylor, I would probably hold off and wait for Taysom Hill if you could, if he's available. But if he's not, those are your best options. Cam against the Falcons coming off the bye, and Ben against the Vikings. Those are number 4 and 5, but you could probably find better options elsewhere. I got 8 running back stashes for you ahead of week 13. The top 2 are the Titans running backs that are currently on bye in week 13. Donta Foreman at 42% owned and Dontrell Hilliard at 40% owned are fine options to stash. Those are probably going to fly under the radar because they are on bye this week. But don't lose track of Jeremy McNichols. Could be working his way back from a concussion. And I think he eats into Hilliard's touches more than Foreman's. So that's why I have Foreman here at the top of the list, but right around 40% owned for both those backs. Another running back that's on bye this week that I think was just forgotten. I saw him picked up in a lot of my 12-team, deeper leagues where people are more active. But if you have any spots where maybe a little bit more shallow, Amir Abdullah is only 4% owned. I think that he could be the lead back over Chuba Hubbard when the Panthers return from bye, now that CMC has been ruled out for the rest of the year. Well, Abdullah was working ahead of Hubbard, maybe in that complementary role to CMC that made more sense. Maybe they go back to what they did with Hubbard at the beginning of the season. But I am definitely stashing Amir Abdullah at 4% owned if I have an extra roster spot. He's interesting. He's available almost everywhere. Matt Breida is a guy that you could stash right now to see how this looks. I don't think his line against the Patriots this week is going to look very good because that's a tough matchup. But if they continue to use Breida as the lead back, if they sit Zach Moss, then Breida at 39% owned is still worth the stash, even if you're not going to play him this week. The rest of these guys are just handcuff running backs that I would look to prioritize and add to my roster right now. Khalil Herbert for the Bears is 15% owned. Ronald Jones, 24% owned. Samaje Perine at 6% owned. And Jarrett Patterson at 1% owned. These are all guys that I'm just trying to stash and see if you get lucky, get that lotto ticket and fall yourself into a RB1 depending on injury. I don't expect any of those 4 guys to have prominent roles otherwise. Moving on to the wide receivers. I have 5 stashes for you here at the wide receiver position. Number 1 is Rondale Moore at 22% owned. I mentioned him as a lower mid waiver wire ad on the Tuesday show, but as far as a stash goes, this is where you're looking for pure upside. Would I probably start a few of these guys over Rondale Moore this week? Yeah, maybe. But Rondale Moore, last time we saw him 2 weeks ago, had 11 targets. I know they're short area, and I know it was with Colt McCoy, but it's sounding like Kyler Murray is going to be back. And it's also sounding like DeAndre Hopkins may not be. They might try to be very careful with him, continue to be careful with him. But regardless, I like the idea of stashing Rondale Moore just to see if they work this rookie in even more as far as snaps go. The targets were there. Let's see a little bit more downfield work for this kid, and you might have hit on a wide receiver 3 for you down the stretch. So Rondale Moore at 22% owned is definitely my favorite. Laviska Shenault, I like the talent. The situation is pretty poor. And we just haven't seen him get the work that you would want to see, especially with Agnew going down last week. Shenault still was pretty much a silent contributor on that Jacksonville offense. But at 40% on, I'll take a shot on him. It's just a stash to see how this week plays out. Curtis Samuel returned from injury last week, played about 15-20% of the snaps. He's only 15% owned. Just going to stash him to see if he works his way into more looks in that Washington offense. Josh Reynolds, 4% owned. I think this number would be a lot higher if he would have performed the way he did on Thanksgiving on a Sunday. But I think people forgot because it was on a Thursday, and he only went up just a few percentage points. I know it's the Lions, but I still think Reynolds is the wide receiver now to own, coming off of 60-plus yards and a touchdown on Thanksgiving. And Nick Westbrook-Akina, also, he scored a touchdown the last time out as well, but with the Titans going on by 14% owned, his ownership did not really change very much. This could be a guy that you sneak through there, being on the bye that people might have forgot about, might have not been on their radar for this week, but you could stash Westbrook-Akina with both Titans wide receivers banged up still. Tight end streamers, Gerald Everett against the Texans, 29% owned. Good games in 2 of his 3 games, 2 of his last 3. I like his upside. They've been working him in a little bit more. Foster Moreau, I like him a ton if we know Darren Waller is out. Darren Waller doubtful for this week. I expect Moreau to see the lion's share for the week 13 game for the Raiders. But week 14, it'd still be up in the air. They said Waller was week to week. So if we knew Moreau was going to be the starter next week at Kansas City at 20% owned, he'd be at the top of this list for me. But if you want to play it a little bit safer, if you want to stash a guy as a streamer for week 14, maybe you're the Dallas Goedert owner, I think Gerald Everett is your guy to own there. Foster Moreau at number 2. Both these guys available in at least 70% of leagues. And number 3 is Cole Kmet. 25% owned, gets the Green Bay Packers in week 14. The thing with Kmet is we saw the season high in catches and yards, and that was great. But there's a lot of factors that go into that. One was those career highs came up against the Lions. Number 2 is they came with Andy Dalton at quarterback, and why Dalton will be the quarterback for the Bears in week 13. Who knows what this is going to look like going forward. So for me, I'd rather stash Everett, Moreau, and then Cole Kmet if you're looking to for a streaming option in week 14. Last but not least, the DSTs. Carolina Panthers coming off the bye at home against the Atlanta Falcons. They like to turn the ball over. So I think Carolina can make it happen, put up a solid streaming DST day at 27% owned. Seattle Seahawks against the Houston Texans. That's going to be on the road. I don't love the Seahawks defense in general. So at 12% owned, I think that you can definitely stream them. But if the Panthers are available, I'd take the shot. And then the Green Bay Packers going to be at home in prime time against the Chicago Bears offense that refuses to move the ball. The Packers are 29% owned. And there are your streaming options for week 14. Hopefully you guys have a successful week 13 and you're set up, and that week 14 matchup doesn't even matter. You locked and loaded your playoff spot and your first round bye. That would be great. And we'll be sitting here talking about playoff action in the coming weeks. With that being said, stay tuned in, stay subscribed. We are a year-round network here. So not only will you continue to get great content throughout the rest of the regular and fantasy playoffs, is that the offseason doesn't exist here on the Dynasty Wars. And we'll be talking a lot of great things here across all of our shows. So really looking forward to that. Even the playoff stuff coming down. There's still fantasy games to be played, bets to be placed. Regarding next week, regularly scheduled here on the Fantasy Football Smackdown, but my buddy Dallas is going to be filling in for me. So you're going to see the Waiver Wire show here on YouTube and on the podcast on Tuesday morning. So that'll be there. Dallas will be covering the Waiver Wire ads for next week. And then the Start Sit show, Dallas will be covering that as well. So be sure to tune in, bring your questions. And as always, appreciate you guys. Good luck in week 13. And I'll see you in about a week. See you guys.